Good day to you, my friends. I wore a shirt today that actually ended up inspiring me in what I wanted to talk about. One of the first things that it inspired me to want to talk about is that not all people who join the military are, one, strictly combat, and even if they are in combat roles, the job is not always strictly combat. Somebody has to lead the unit. Somebody has to facilitate pay, and they have to make sure that the healthcare is squared away. There has to be somebody to make sure that the training is going off without a hitch, to create the training plans, to create the timelines for these things, to fund these things for the different units. Iceberg, if you will. So that little bit that you see sticking out the top is your combat unit. And then that giant iceberg below the surface is everything that supports that capability. And the reason I even mention that stuff is because it feels like a common misconception that folks think that you put on the uniform, you go to boot camp, you put on the uniform, you grab your rifle, and then suddenly it's all just rah, 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 kill, kill, kill. That's not the case. There's a lot of training, absolutely. There's a lot of training in combatives, both hand-to-hand stuff, the martial arts, if you will. There's a lot of training on weapon systems. There's a lot of cross-training, like how to call in close air support, how to work in conjunction with other units, how to talk across branches. The Navy/Marine Corps doesn't have its own dedicated platform for medevac, so we have to learn how to work with dust off in PJ or Pedro. All right, moving on. Let's get into the meat of this. This particular unit, Military Assistance Command Vietnam Services and Observation Group. Personally think these are the baddest motherfuckers to walk the face of the earth. To give you guys some examples on why I can even say that stuff, a lot of folks have heard of a unit that's called Delta. Delta came from here. Some of the most storied and legendary folks in Special Operations history come from here. Billy Waugh, Roy Benavidez. First combat Halo jump was MAC-V SOG. They provided the framework, which is JSOC today, the Joint Special Operations Command. And during their 9 operational years, there were times when they had a 100% casualty rate. And their kill ratio was 1 to 158. That means for every 1 soul that they lost, they snatched the souls of 158. We're not even talking about massive units that are going out here and doing this sort of work. We're talking about 6 to 12-man teams with only 3 Americans on them. Not like they're rolling down the road in an impenetrable vehicle. No, these guys are getting dropped in the middle of bad guy country, and it's not even a direct action unit, which means a pew-pew on a pew-pew unit. Their roles and responsibilities were primarily surveillance and reconnaissance. They can do direct action. They have tons of examples of when direct action happened, whether or not they wanted it. And although it may take the craziest people that you can possibly imagine to go do this sort of work, another reason that people even would go do something like this unit had a unique mission set within the unit, and that was called Bright Light missions. And those Bright Light missions were combat search and rescue, and that combat search and rescue was executed by other teams who are not out in the field currently. And so it's not just the infill, and it's a dangerous moment for the team, and they got to figure that stuff out, but now the Bright Light mission is absolutely going in when it's hot to try and get these guys. So when I mentioned Roy Benavidez earlier, that's what Roy Benavidez is known for. Jumping into a helo during a bright light operation when things went really fucking bad. And please, don't get me wrong. Anybody who wants to come in here and argue with me that, they're this and there's that and there's this other unit, that's fine. There are a lot of storied units over not only the American military, but in world history. A lot of really impressive, really legendary units. I'm not saying that this unit is better than them. All these different units have their different profile sets. All I'm saying is that, my opinion, these are the baddest motherfuckers to ever grace a battlefield. And if you're interested in reading about this unit or some of the stories from the men who served in that unit, anything from John Plaster, I think, is about SOG, but Whispers in the Tall Grass, fantastic. Nick Brockhausen, Eric Blem writes a good story about Roy Benavidez. It's called Legend. Across the Fence by John Stryker Meyer. Anyway, if you're still hanging out, I appreciate you. I know this is atypical content for me, but I really wanted to talk about MAC-V SOG, but it was also sort of coupled with like people having sort of a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation of what it means to serve in the military. So I hope you enjoyed. Y'all be safe, be well. I'll see you soon.